always a privilege and a pleasure to welcome U.S. Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin to the phones. Senator, good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
We're doing very well. How's everything going in Washington today?
Well, I'm actually in Wisconsin here, driving down the airport, so it's a beautiful day here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'd rather be here, as a matter of fact. Yeah, Wisconsin, Illinois, absolutely.
Well, we talked to you this morning, Senator, as seemingly the world is just everywhere you look, new and troubling stories, and we must start with yesterday's video, the beheading of another American journalist. The president finally responding somewhat this morning in a press conference with the leader of Estonia. But ISIS, this terrorist threat, is the president's own administration saying it's something unlike anything we've ever seen. What's your read thus far on ISIS?
Well, we've actually seen these beheading videos now for years. It started with Danny Pearl, and we've seen these in the past, so we do understand what barbarians these people are, how evil they are. And, if this is another video that at least awakens the American public and awakens this president to the growing and gathering storm, the growing danger that ISIS represents not only to the region, but to the world and to America directly. So, if that's what it takes to get people's attention, it's kind of sad. But we better not ignore this threat. We ignore it at our own peril.
Well, and then, Senator, when the president comes out and says, we don't have a strategy yet, we're still working on things, we're giving every indication that we don't have our ducks in a row. Now, if that's the case, why would you say that?
Well, you should. I mean, what the president should be portraying is confidence. I mean, he should be showing the American people that he is actively engaged. It really actually was unbelievable. I don't begrudge the president taking some time off. He has an awesome responsibility. But, in moments of crisis and when this country is in peril, you need to really be showing the American people that you're fully engaged in the process. And, going up to Martha's Vineyard and golfing every day, coming back for a 10-minute press conference and then going back on the links, does not demonstrate the seriousness of purpose that I think the American public expects, and they should expect out of the President of the United States. So, then he comes out and gives a press conference when he's really not prepared to give one. It just shouldn't give a press conference until you actually can relay to the American public some positive news and demonstrate to them that you do have a handled situation, that you're making the phone calls, you're assembling the coalition of the willing. That's what you need to demonstrate to the American public.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson with us here. It's Riley and Scott on WROK. He's from the great state of Wisconsin, just to the north of us. You mentioned the seriousness of purpose, Senator, and again this morning in that news conference, the president said his goal with ISIS is that he wants to make it, quoting, a manageable problem, a manageable problem. When I hear that, it took me back this morning to some of the containment language about communism. We have to acknowledge it's going to exist. It will continue to exist. We just have to contain it. We have to make ISIS a manageable problem. Does that goal go far enough for you?
I don't believe you can contain them, and I don't think you can manage them. I think they need to be defeated and eliminated. And again, everybody made a big deal that President Obama said he didn't have a strategy. The fact of the matter is he has had a strategy. It's been a strategy of apologizing for America and withdrawing from the world. I mean, ISIS would not have, reconstituted itself had we left a stabilizing force behind in Iraq, like we did after World War II in Japan and in Germany, like we did after the Korean War in Korea, and see how successful those outcomes have been. So it was a historic strategic blunder on the part of the president not to consolidate our gains and do everything we could to stabilize the situation in Iraq. And now we are living the consequences of that blunder. But again, that is because that has been his strategy to withdraw from the world. And whether we like it or not, the United States is the world's superpower. The world looks to America for leadership. Leading from behind is not a strategy that works. We're seeing the obvious results of that. Very misguided strategy.
And, Senator, we're not seeing a whole lot of leadership as we deal with what's going on with the Ukrainian situation either.
Well, that's also another tragedy. I'm the ranking member of the Foreign Relations Committee on Europe, so we made a number of trips to Ukraine. When Prime Minister Yeltsin came to Washington and asked just for some small arms, and ammunition, really is a show of support, and that's what we should have been doing now for months. We should have very visibly, very overtly been supplying Ukraine with the weaponry, with the technical advice they need for counterinsurgency actions, really to demonstrate to Vladimir Putin that we are going to support now President Poroshenko in his efforts to maintain the territorial integrity of Ukraine and Ukraine's self-governance. And the result of our weakness, of our lack of resolve, our not showing that support, is that Vladimir Putin believes he can continue his aggression with impunity, and so that's what he's doing.
Senator, is there any way to describe what's happening there except for an invasion, except for a war breaking out between Russia and Ukraine?
Oh, it is a war, and that's part of the problem I have with this president. He just seems to deny reality. He doesn't want to acknowledge it. I know he ran on the slogan of hope and change, but hope isn't a strategy. Wishful thinking is not a useful military tactic. So, I hear the administration all the time saying we need to offer Vladimir Putin an off-ramp. He's not looking for off-ramps. He's looking for on-ramps. And his method has always been to destabilize the nation-states around Russia because that keeps him in power. Successful democracies at Russia's border is not helpful for Vladimir Putin. So he's in the business of destabilizing those regimes, those nations. We need to recognize that reality and realize that the only thing that Vladimir Putin will respond to is matching military strength and military strength. Again, not necessarily go to war, but showing him that we're serious, that you actually do achieve peace through strength. And we've not been showing the kind of strength that will deter him.
U.S. Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin with us. It's Riley and Scott here on WROK. Turning domestically, we're just about 2.5 months or so away from Election Day. And we look at the Senate races, Senator, and there's a lot of talk about Republicans taking back the Senate. I think back to your race. Russ Feingold was considered untouchable, unbeatable. No one was going to catch him. He was a shoo-in for re-election. And all of a sudden, the polls showed you closing, taking the lead, and eventually being victorious. We have a situation here in Illinois where a couple of polls have shown this race between Jim Oberweis and Dick Durbin a single-digit race, 6 points, 7 points perhaps. Oberweis, at least in the recent polls, has been closing. Is this the kind of race that is not on radar screens, but perhaps could be another Republican victory?
Well, anything's possible. I think the way to be successful as conservatives, as Republicans, is to point out to the public, what we're for, and what we're for is doing everything we possibly can to make Illinois or America an attractive place for business risk-taking, business expansion, job creation. That's how you build a strong middle class. You have a robust economy so that businesses have to compete for labor. We're all about growing the private sector. People like Dick Durbin are all about growing government. People like Dick Durbin think they're so smart. People like President Obama feel they're such better angels that they can actually direct economies. And, of course, what we're seeing over the last 5.5 years, that the security that Americans crave has not been delivered. Let's face it, the policies of Dick Durbin, the policies of President Obama have actually reduced Americans' job security, their income security, their retirement security. The health care law certainly has not increased America's health care security. It's going to reduce access. And as we discussed, you look at the events around the world, certainly President Obama's policies that basically are supported by people like Senator Durbin have reduced our national security as well. So, hopefully if we frame the debate that way, let the American people, let the voters of Illinois understand how disastrous the left's policies have been to middle-income Americans, to low-income Americans. We've trapped people in poverty. Our education system has utterly failed us. Because of the housing bubble, African-American families have lost 52% of their net worth. Hispanic families, 66% of their net worth because government forced banks to make loans to people who couldn't afford to pay them. That's where people put their wealth, and that created a housing bubble, and now that wealth has been destroyed. So people have to look at the results of these supposedly well-intentioned policies and realize they've been disastrous for the very people they've been purported to help.
And Senator, you mentioned, we all mentioned Dick Durbin, of course, here in Illinois, and one of his big issues now are these corporate inversions, Walgreens, Abbott, Burger King, the list goes on and on. his idea is to write these threatening letters and try to bully companies into staying in the U.S., as opposed to actually fixing the problem, which is that we have the highest corporate tax rate in the industrialized world. What's a better way to go about not preventing, I guess, but convincing companies to stay?
Well, you're exactly right. I understand the root cause is a incredibly counterproductive, incredibly destructive tax code, incredibly complex. We need to scrap the current tax code, make it simple, obviously lower rates so that we're competitive. I mean, if you're a multinational company, are you going to cite a manufacturing plant in Toronto with a 15% tax rate or Detroit with a 35% tax rate? I mean, this isn't rocket science. It's actually pretty simple. The moves we need to make, the kind of policy prescriptions to make America or Illinois a more attractive place for that business risk-taking. So, it's just ridiculous that the Democrats will continue to demonize business, demagogue against success. What we should be doing is incentivizing success and celebrating it.
Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin. Hey, before we let you go, quickly, if you can, NFL season starts tomorrow night. The Packers and the Seahawks means the NFL season starts. Thumbnail on your Packers this year. Are they good enough to hold off our Bears one more time?
Oh, I think that is a real possibility. They look really strong in the preseason, so I've got my hopes high, but I'll make no predictions. It all depends on healthy health, Aaron Rodgers and the rest of the team.
All right. Well, Senator, as always, we appreciate you taking time out of what we know is a busy day for us.
You guys have a great day.
Thank you very much.